Hey everyone, I hope you're doing well. So by now you know that Spider-Man No Way Home was the ultimate crossover of crossovers. But there's one character that I feel was underutilized in the movie, Venom. Now obviously if he was actually in the movie, it might have disrupted the main plot and wouldn't give fans enough time for a proper Spider-Man versus Venom storyline, which we'll definitely see in the future. But for the sake of a fun what-if/fan fiction, I think giving Venom a bigger role as opposed to a little end credit scene could have made for an interesting dynamic, where Eddie Brock and Venom are the wild cards in the story. Every multiversal character in No Way Home has a direct connection to Spider-Man. The only knowledge Venom would have of Spider-Man is that he's a murderer who's just killed a superhero named Mysterio. Venom and Eddie would see this new universe they just traveled to as a fresh start, to not be seen as criminals or even anti-heroes, but as the lethal protectors and heroes like the Avengers. And what better way to make a good first impression by capturing the most wanted man on the planet, Spider-Man. This is how we would get Spider-Man versus Venom without making Venom a villain necessarily. Because Venom isn't in New York when Strange's spell causes the villains to travel to the MCU, it would take him a much longer time to reach Peter. We would see Eddie arrive in New York, seeing J. Jonah Jameson detail the aftermath of the destruction that took place where the villains went rogue. Peter 1, 2, and 3 would already have made it to the Statue of Liberty, and it's when Peter broadcasts himself to attract the villains that Eddie and Venom are able to see where he is. The battle would continue as it does in the actual movie. After the Spider-Men regroup and start planning their attacks, Andrew's Peter would be caught off guard when he's trying to reach for a cure when he's suddenly grabbed and struck to the floor. Andrew would yell to the other Peters, "Hey yo, Spider-Man, I think that weird alien goo thing is here!" Venom is about to swipe at Peter 3 when we hear the sound of metal clashing against metal as Toby swings by with a metal pipe in hand. Venom briefly separates from Eddie, panicked and confused as to how they knew one of his weaknesses. Toby tells Andrew the alien doesn't like sound and throws the pipe to Andrew. This would be the payoff moment from when Andrew told the other Peters he wishes he got to fight an alien. And it would be a nice callback to how Toby defeated his Eddie Brock way back in Spider-Man 3. Andrew is excited for his first alien fight as he yells, "Okay, this is the greatest day of my life."
What is happening?
We see Andrew web the ceiling and swing forward to Venom as he hits the metal scaffolding around him, causing Venom to shriek again. Unable to stay bonded with Eddie, Venom leaps from Eddie to Peter 3, and we briefly see Andrew in his own black symbiote Spider-Man costume, before he freaks out and smashes some more pipes together. Venom leaps off of him and falls off the scaffolding, leaving Eddie alone with Peter 3. Andrew is surprised to see just some random dude underneath. "Are you an alien too?"
No, I'm not an alien. I'm cool.
This is when Eddie would realize the Spider-Man may not be the enemy, as he actually has a conversation with Peter 3. We cut to the Venom symbiote falling down the scaffolding of the Statue of Liberty and lands on Peter 1, instantly bonding with him as we see Tom Holland finally in the black symbiote outfit.
You are under arrest at the hands of the lethal protectors.
What are you talking about? I'm not actually a killer. I'm trying to stop these guys. Because this version of Venom is a bit more lighthearted, this would be more of a comedic moment, with Peter and Venom bickering as he tries to explain that he isn't a killer and this is all a misunderstanding. As this is happening, they're swinging around, fighting or dodging the other villains, and Peter realizes the sudden increase in power that he feels with the symbiote. On the flip side, even though Venom wanted to arrest Peter so he could be seen as a hero in this new universe, he couldn't help but enjoy the capabilities of this new host. He could get used to being bonded with someone who has superpowers of their own. Throughout all the chaos, they managed to find a way to briefly cooperate with each other, as Peter tries to cure the other villains. This would portray the instantly strong bond that Peter and the Venom symbiote have, foreshadowing possible storylines between the two. When MJ and Ned need help with the lizard, Peter rushes to their aid and is easily able to throw the lizard away from them. He stands on the other side of the portal, in front of his friends, with the black symbiote shining in the golden light. As they look in awe and confusion, Ned says, "Peter, is that you?" "Yeah, Ned, it's me. Are you guys okay?"
Okay, these are just random people.
No, these are my friends, Ned and MJ. Who are you talking to?
This alien suit thing.
The suit can talk? Yeah, dude, it can talk. It's an alien. After they've cured most of the villains, the three Spider-Man and Eddie Brock are standing together. Eddie sees Peter with the symbiote and warns him he doesn't want any part of Venom, to which Toby chimes in and says it gives you power you don't need. Tom agrees and says Venom is kind of annoying anyway. After this brief moment of peace, Doctor Strange arrives to bring everyone back to their universes, and soon after, the Goblin attacks. The final fight between Peter and Norman begins the same way. However, this time Peter now has the Venom symbiote amplifying his emotions and making him even stronger. The Goblin scoffs and laughs at Peter, and Venom is immediately terrified.
Oh shit, I'm not fighting that guy.
To which Peter replies, I'm gonna kill him with or without you. But Venom couldn't resist a good fight anyway, and decided to stay bonded with Peter instead of returning to Eddie, who was with Peter 2 and 3. Each strike from the symbiote-enhanced Peter was way more fierce and violent than we've ever seen before. This time, it wouldn't even be a contest. He would pummel and beat Norman to a pulp, truly unleashing all the rage and pain buried deep inside. Peter 2 would still block Peter 1 from killing Norman with his glider, but this time an angrier goblin would stab Toby multiple times, fatally wounding him. Norman then thrusts his blade to Peter 1 when Venom's hand reaches out from the suit to block the attack, giving Peter 1 enough time to cure Norman, with both Spider-Man looking down at Toby with tears in his eyes. He struggles to say, with great power. He doesn't finish the second half because he doesn't have to. His brothers nod and repeat, with great power. With great power. It seems Peter 2 is about to take his last breath, before we see Tom look down at his arm, confused. Toby looks at his hand to see it once again covered by Venom. Afraid, but too weak to say anything. We hear Venom say,
I know you.
Toby's eyes widen and he takes a large breath as Venom heals his wounds and rescues him from death. A grateful Peter 2 says thank you to Venom, who's still bonded with him. Venom replies,
don't get used to it,
as he leaps from Peter to Eddie. Eddie apologizes to the Spider-Man for the whole mix-up, saying how he probably shouldn't always trust the angry man yelling on the TV. Venom takes over, growing to his true form, and says,
I like your powers, but more importantly, I love your style.
We see white appear on Venom's chest as it morphs into a giant spider emblem, finally creating an official bridge between this version of Venom and Spider-Man, allowing him to more closely resemble his comic book counterpart. I really wanted to emphasize the strong bond between Venom and Peter Parker, even with different versions of each other that haven't technically met yet, because Venom's species, the Clintar, are a hive mind that can communicate across different dimensions. So I wanted to allude that maybe this version of Venom had memories from the Venom we saw in Spider-Man 3. The rest of the story plays out pretty much the same. We would see Peter make his triumphant final swing in his classic Spidey suit. However, in the final shots, we see him looking at his arms and his whole body as he swings to discover a black ooze slowly covering him. He falls down towards the screen as the symbiote fully engulfs him. So, obviously, if they were to actually include Venom in No Way Home, I do think it may have felt a little overstuffed, and I can see why they chose not to. But for this story's sake, I wanted to present a less black and white representation of Peter and Venom's relationship, as opposed to Spider-Man 3, where Venom isn't necessarily this evil entity, but is definitely a bad influence on Peter. I think this sets up a few problems Peter's gonna have in Spider-Man 4, but I would want his storyline with Venom to continue beyond just one movie. I would love to see that story develop throughout the next Tom Holland Spider-Man trilogy, with Peter at a point where he's more alone than he's ever been, while Venom is in his ear telling him what he thinks he should do. I will say I was kind of disappointed with the lack of Venom in No Way Home, considering Sony set us up with that Carnage end credit scene, putting Eddie Brock and Venom in the No Way Home conversation, only to have them just appear in the end credits again. This what if is my way of trying to figure where Venom would have fit in if they really wanted to include him in this story. And having him as the wild card who doesn't initially know who to trust was interesting to me. So I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you have any other suggestions, definitely let me know in the comments. There's an infinite amount of stories on the way, so subscribe if you'd like to check those out, and I'll see you next time.